Ladies and gentlemen, what is a great pleasure for me to have my good friend Will from Texas. Hi, Will, how are you, buddy?
Hey, buddy, how you been?
Fantastic, man. We had the greatest wrestling trip ever, I think, right?
It was amazing to be able to go to Mexico City and see the CMLL 85th anniversary show with all those legends on the card, with great matches up and down the card, to be in that
Right.
atmosphere, just amazing. And then 2 days later, you came to America and we drove to San Antonio and you were able to see Hell in the Cell 2018, which was a
That's
great
right.
card up until the horrible ending. So,
For the people listening, like me and Will, we both of us, first of all, are huge Lucha Libre fans, right?
oh, it's my favorite.
It is amazing, and we have arranged. We went to CMLL. I think 85th anniversary show, and
That's
we've
right.
been to Mexico for 2 days. We went to see Impact, and then we went to Arena Mexico, which was a dream coming true.
You know what's funny is that you just mentioned that we went to go see Impact, and I
Right.
completely forgot about that show. I couldn't tell you one match that happened on that show.
We were dead tired, man.
It has nothing to do with that. It just the quality of wrestling between that CML anniversary show and
Right.
Impact was so huge that there's no way we could like retain the TNA memory. Could you remember one match from that show off the top
I
of your head?
the, only a bit like I think the Lucha Brothers was there, but against who? No, that's pretty hard to remember.
Exactly. Okay. So
What? So tell us about the magic of Arena Mexico. Like we've been hearing a lot of legendary stories about it. Did it live to the hype?
it was like nothing I've ever seen at a wrestling show. You know, between the vendors on the street selling bootleg DVDs, bootleg masks, bootleg action figures,
Right.
cooking food right there outside the arena. And when
Right.
you walk up to the arena, and Hassan, you'll agree with this, it's like a dilapidated building, and they open up these
Yes.
garage doors, and then all of a sudden you go through the garage doors and you're transported into this magical arena with
It's
big
beautiful.
big murals of lucha wrestlers from the past. Then you go
Right.
into the full-sized arena and you're just in awe. And it's such a weird experience, but it was amazing. I'd never take it back.
And it was so colorful from the inside, like the setup, it looked
Yes,
beautiful.
yes, absolutely. And the it was one of those things where we had really good tickets too. So we could see the entire arena from where we were at. We were up close on the action. We could walk up to the barricade that was
Right.
next to the ring. We had a perfect view of the stage. And the neat thing about Arena Mexico is that in the nosebleed seats, when the people up there in general admission are going in their seats, what they do is that they fill up one side of the arena. And as more
Yes.
and more people come, you start seeing the top of the arena fill up from one side to the next. It's not people scattered randomly. It's almost like they have to fill in each section before they move to the next section.
Right. Right. I never I've been to so many arenas. This is really unique. And man, like I know this is a question for you. You've been to so many live wrestling shows going back to the 80s, right?
That's correct.
I'm not sure about you. For me, I've been to some wrestling shows, not as many as you, but this is the most fun I ever had in a wrestling show.
Without a doubt. It, in terms of great wrestling, atmosphere, fun, just an amazing experience. There's nothing else I could think of that could come close. And I've been up close at a lot of wrestling shows. You know, I've had first row, third row, fifth row to a lot of WWE shows, and nothing comes close to this.
Tell us about the experience of watching Negro Casas live, man.
I couldn't even tell you, man. I was going nuts, man. People around me were
Yeah.
like, "Why is this guy going crazy? He needs to calm down. It's only the second match of the night, you know." But I
We
was, I was
freaked
just,
out, both of us, like fiving each other.
yeah. Negro Casas does an arm drag and we flip out. Like, oh my God, he just did an arm drag. Can you believe it? You know, it, it's like it sounds corny, man, but it was like a dream come true to see, you know, this wrestler that you admire for so long just live and so close, you know.
But he had that legendary aura, right? Like seeing him live.
Absolutely. The entire crowd was behind him that night.
Right. Uh, Speaking of live wrestling experience, tell us about how did you get like going back to your childhood? When did you start watching wrestling? And what was your first ever live wrestling experience?
Okay, I can answer this question. So I first started watching wrestling when it was Georgia Championship Wrestling on TBS. Okay. So I want to say 1980, 81, maybe,
Wow.
like 6, 7 years old, man. And my first memory that I've retained from wrestling was when Ted DiBiase broke his neck, or when the Freebirds broke Ted DiBiase's neck. Like
Oh, I
I
don't
remember,
recall that. Was it in Georgia wrestling?
yeah, that was the Freebirds. Yeah, that was when Terry Gordy gave him 3 pile drivers.
Believe it or not, this is the first time I hear or about the angle.
What? Are you kidding me? No, this is like a legendary angle, man. This is like an all-time classic wrestling angle. Then the weeks afterwards, they showed Ted DiBiase in the hospital, and you could send letters to him at the hospital. And I wanted to write him a letter. You know, I remember that vividly. I remember
Wow,
like
you have
Mr.
to check it
Wrestling
out,
2,
man.
Tony Atlas, and I only have vague memories of watching wrestling at that time. But I do remember Ted DiBiase breaking his neck. So then, you know, when I get on the internet 20 years later and I find out that, oh wow, that was a huge angle, you know, blew
Right.
my mind. Oh wow, like I remember watching that as a kid. And then after that, so when that wrestling was on, I think our TV only had like 13 channels. We didn't have cable TV, right?
Okay,
And
right.
then I want to say like 1984, we get cable TV. Okay. And that's when we started seeing WWF and, you know, WrestleMania is building up and Mr. T is hanging out with Hulk Hogan. And
Right.
then in 1985, you start seeing all those old wrestlers that I saw like as a kid popping up on Crockett's territory. And then
Awesome.
ESPN later on would show AWA. And since I had moved to Texas, then we're watching world class wrestling every week with the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, and later on with like Missing Link and Rick Rude and the Dingo Warrior and just all this wrestling. And so I was in Phoenix visiting my uncle. I want to say it was the summer of 1986, and he took me to a house show, a WWF house show. Okay, now check out this double main event, Hassan. Okay, it was Jake the Snake Roberts versus Ricky Steamboat,
Wow.
Randy Savage versus Tito Santana.
Man.
Okay, and I know that the I want to say Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov wrestled the U.S. Express, but this was the Dan Spivey version, not the Barry
Right.
Windham version.
Right.
And there were midgets on the card. There was like a midget tag team match, so I was able to see midgets wrestle. So I'm happy.
Awesome.
You know, my life is
Right.
complete, right? and I for the life of me, I can't remember what the other matches were, but I clearly remember that. And I actually found pictures of that house show the other day. Okay. So I found pictures that I took back in 1986 of that house show in a
Awesome.
box. I was cleaning out some old boxes and found those pictures.
Wow, that's amazing, man. You got to see Randy Savage live and wrestling against Santana and Steamboat, against Jake
Steamboat
the
versus
Snake Roberts.
Savage, yes, or Steamboat versus Jake, and they, and Jake had the snake, and he pulled out a Damien and everything. Man, it was amazing. I will when I find those pictures again because I put them back in the box. When I clean out
Right.
that box within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll send you the pictures. Okay.
I would love to see them, man. You was talking about all those different territories and promotions going on at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like at this day and age, people are saying this is the golden age of wrestling. You have like AEW, WWE going on, a New Japan. Just compare it to the 80s. What do you think was hotter? What is like
It's not
the
even
cooler
close.
era?
It's
You've
not even
lived
close.
in both,
It's not even close. The peak
right?
year that I can think of for wrestling watching, for wrestling viewing. Now, today, if I wanted to, I can get on YouTube, Daily Motion, the network, whatever, and I can watch wrestling from the past or whatever, right?
Right.
But in terms of just having nonstop wrestling choices at your disposal, like 1986 was the year. Okay. So in 1986, like look at this. This is a Saturday. Okay. You wake up around noon. Bill Watts's UWF, Universal Wrestling Federation, would appear, or I think it was around noon, like right after Saturday morning cartoons. You get
Right.
UWF. Then after that, sometimes they would show like California Championship Wrestling, California Wrestling, and it would have Professor Tora Tanaka. He's the only one I remember vividly from those TV. And sometimes instead of showing California Wrestling, they would show Glow. I think Glow was there. Glow might have been later. I'm not sure. Someone can correct me on that. But I do remember like them showing California Wrestling, and then later on Glow would be in that time spot or whatever.
All on the same day.
Oh, dude, we're still in the morning, okay?
Wow.
And then after that, so now you're at around 2 o'clock. Then there's a possibility that one of the channels would have either like one of the syndicated WWF shows, right? Now
Right.
there might have been an hour break or a half-hour break, but not much, right? Then there would be a syndicated WCW show, so either Worldwide or Pro or whichever show. Sometimes both, right? Like whatever shows were showing.
Awesome.
Then you have the WCW Saturday night, so you'd watch that, okay? And then depending on the day, there might be a Saturday night's main event that night, so you'd watch Saturday night's main event. And World Class from Texas was shown like on late Saturday nights. I remember it being later, like because sometimes I would fall asleep watching World Class Wrestling from Texas. So the Von Erichs at the time in '86, you're probably looking at. I know Gino Hernandez and had already died, so Chris Adams I think was still there. Rick
Right.
Rude was definitely there. Um, I don't think I, I don't think he had jumped to Crockett. I think he jumped in late '86, right?
Right.
Okay. Um, the Dingo Warrior for sure. So all of this happened on a Saturday. So that's not including like TNT for WWF during the week. That's not including the
Right.
Sunday NWA show. That's not including AWA on ESPN. Like there were so many wrestling options. Remember back
Man.
then, if you weren't playing outside,
Right.
you were inside watching TV or playing like the first Nintendo video game system or something. So
Right.
our options were limited. There was no internet, you know. So it's different, Hassan. And the same as with music, right? Like I would prefer music from any other era compared to
Right.
today's music. However, if I want to listen to music from any era, I can today easier than I ever have been in my life. You know, it's
Yes, I know what
most
you
of the
mean.
time it's free. You can get on Spotify and sample bands you like or music you like.
Right.
Okay. Same thing with wrestling. If I want to watch Memphis, if I want to watch Japan, Puerto Rico, Mexico, wherever, I can do that today effortlessly. I
Right.
can just get on the internet, get on YouTube, type in a wrestler's name, and you and I in 5 minutes could be watching like a match from France from the 1960s,
Right.
right?
We just,
Because we've done that before.
yes, just
However,
last week.
however, if you said, "Hey, let's watch Raw" or "Let's watch a WWE show this week," I would pass. But in
Yeah.
1986, I'd be like, oh, yeah, we're watching some wrestling because you didn't want to miss it. Even if it was nothing but squash matches and interviews, you never knew because maybe that
Right.
week they would have like a 30-minute classic match on TV. You just never knew. It could be 2 hours full of squashes or it could be like an hour long Barry Windham versus Ric Flair match. You didn't know what you were going to get, you
So
know? And
let me ask you this. I know you have a saying like there are some wrestlers you call an adult wrestlers, like you grow to like whenever like it will need you a certain time of watching wrestlers to get into them, right? What what were your favorite wrestlers at that time when Will was like in his 9 or 10 years old? Who did you like at that time as your favorites?
okay, so who did I like as a kid, right?
Right.
All baby faces. If I was a babyface fan, I never cheered the Four Horsemen. I never put the four fingers up. I never liked the Freebirds. I never liked the bad guys ever. Macho Man might have been the only bad guy that I can ever recall thinking, "Wow, he's cool" or "he's neat," you know. But I hated him. I hated all the heels. I
Right.
cheered for the baby faces every single time. Every single time. Now, there were a couple of wrestlers that are some of my favorite wrestlers today. Buddy Rose, Dick Murdoch. I love those guys. I think they're amazing wrestlers today, right? Like when
Right.
I go back and watch old footage, I think these guys know how to wrestle. This is what I want to see from my wrestling. But back when I was like 11, 12 years old, I would look at them and say, why are these guys like fighting premium matches. Like why are
Right.
they be being touted as great wrestlers? I thought they were horrible. Like I thought Dick Murdoch was like this old man with a beer gut. And I was like, what? And
Right.
Buddy Rose was just this fat slob and I couldn't understand why they were getting pushes. Like uh, in my head it was like the Road Warriors would destroy these guys in 4 minutes, you know?
Yes.
Like why are they getting offense in? Why is Dick Murdoch being pushed? I couldn't stand it. It bothered me. It's just like, you gotta be kidding me.
Right.
But then I look at like a guy like Ronnie Garvin who gets no respect and who was also a great wrestler. Okay. And I loved
Right.
Ronnie Garvin. When Ronnie Garvin won the world title from Flair, I was happy. And then I was upset when he lost it, you know? Although they never treated Ronnie Garvin like a world champion on TV. They would have him open the show with the belt and wrestle job matches, and they would never make you wait for
Right.
an hour to see the world champion. It was just like, oh yeah, Ronnie Garvin won the belt, by the way. Like they always treated him like a transitional champion,
Right.
and, and it was
So let
sad
me, I think
because
you went.
I think he was a legitimately great wrestler.
Right.
It upset me. But my favorites as a kid were face DiBiase. So before DiBiase um, was the $1 Million Man, because when I saw DiBiase as a kid, I saw him really young, like I told you, when he was a face in Georgia. I
Right.
missed his whole Rat Pack time uh, in Mid South because we didn't have that TV. Okay.
Right.
And then when I saw him again in UWF, he was already a face again, teaming with Dr. Death. So
Yes.
face DiBiase, Tito Santana, true story. Tito Santana, the only wrestler I ever had their T-shirt. Okay, I had an Arriba Santana T-shirt. Okay, as a kid, and
That's
Ricky
awesome.
Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat was by far my. I had a Ricky Steamboat poster in my room. Man, I loved Ricky
Right.
Steamboat. Little fake ninja.
Do you think it's about like a person character would affect who would cheer at a certain age? Because I was a babyface guy as well, but when I was a kid, I was a good kid. Like, I would listen to my parents' orders. I am trying to be a good kid. And there are some other kids, like, let's say, the bad guys or the baddest guy at school, and I would notice like they would cheer like some of the heels. You know what I mean? Do you think there
Right.
is a relationship between a person character and who would he cheer in a wrestling?
Oh yeah, if you were cheering a heel when you were 12 years old, you were an asshole,
Yeah,
right? There's no.
right.
I'm not saying that you can't be friends with that guy now or whatever. I'm just saying if you were that kid, cheering. I don't know who was Hulk Hogan fighting in 1987 or whatever. Andre, right? Like, come on, get out of
Right.
here. You got to cheer for
Or
Hulk,
Paul
you know.
Androff. Yeah.
Or you can't cheer for Jake after he DDTs Ricky Steamboat on the concrete. What the hell's wrong with you? You know? Why are you cheering
Unless you
for
are a
them? They're
bully at
jerks.
school, like bullying other students.
What's that?
Unless you are a bully, so you would cheer Jake the Snake. You were bullying other
Of course,
students and
because
you
you're
were
a
like,
bully. You're a jerk. You're stealing kids' lunch monies. You know?
right,
I hear it all the time. If people like, oh, I cheered the heels. Like, why? Why are you an asshole? Stop being an
right.
asshole. Nice. You know?
Especially we didn't have that knowledge about the inside tricks and secrets of wrestling. So what we were
Yeah.
seeing, we were relating to that, right?
Right. Now, okay, so check this out. Like, I hated Tully Blanchard so much as a kid, right?
Right.
Like, I could not stand him ever. I just thought this guy's the worst. I hate the way he cheats all the time. I hate that he's winning matches. The Road Warriors should just decapitate this guy. Magnum TA should just like destroy this guy. Why is he going toe to toe with him? I hated him.
Right.
Okay, even after I had discovered the internet and Smart Mark Wrestling and the Observer and everything else. Okay, so we're talking like 20 years after his peak. I still hated Tully Blanchard as an adult. Okay, I was a 30-year-old man, 35-year-old man hating Tully Blanchard until I could, and then I was watching a bunch of NWA matches for a project. And I
Right.
was like, oh my God, this guy is really good. Why did I hate him? Man, I still harbored that hate from when I was a kid 20 years before. That's how effective of a heel he was, is that I hated him as an adult. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Someone has sent me a Bam Bam Bigelow versus Tolly Blanchard match, a cage match, and Tolly was a baby face. He was a damn good baby face as well.
When?
He had a cage match against Bam Bam Bigelow. I think it was from a house show from 1990, and he was the baby face. And man, he was selling and like being the underdog and fighting from the underneath. He was awesome.
Right. Well, send me that match.
I will. I will.
Come on, man. I thought we were friends, Hassan. Why are you holding that match from me?
Or we are going to watch it together like our regular
Yeah, we'll
cinching.
sync up for sure. And okay, so we were talking about wrestling in the different decades, right?
Right.
So think about this, Hassan. At no other time in history, right, could a guy from Bahrain and a guy
Yeah.
from Texas talk on the phone or talk on the internet or whatever, watch matches at the same time,
Right.
discuss those matches, plan a trip to Mexico City
Right.
to watch Mexican wrestling fly back to San Antonio, drive San Antonio, watch a WWE pay-per-view, and then 2 years later discuss matches on the internet on a podcast,
I know.
right? And so
Yeah.
so in a lot of ways, watching wrestling today or sharing those experiences today, there's nothing like it in the world, right? Like we
Right.
kind of live in a magical time. So I don't want to
Right.
think, oh, the past is better. No, man, having only 12 channels sucked when you were a kid
Yes.
watching TV, you know? Um, watching only squash matches for like a month in a row, that kind of sucked because you invested all
Right.
your time. Because
Yes.
it's not like now. I mean, I guess you could have recorded it on a VCR, and sometimes you did, but VHS tapes weren't cheap. So,
Right.
and I'm not going to record over my mom's soap operas or my sister's TV shows because then I'd get my ass beat, you know?
Right.
Like, so it wasn't just like you could pick and choose what you wanted to watch. Like if you watched wrestling back then, you had to invest your time in that show. Okay.
Right.
If you went to the restroom, you missed a match, it's over, it's gone, it
It's
disappeared,
over.
you
Yeah.
know? That's it, you
I
know?
want I, I want to take your take on this. We are going back to some wrestling memories. Like you like AEW. There was some buzz lately. Like I think Kenny Omega. I didn't see the match. Kenny Omega had a match with a newcomer, right? And I
Yes.
think he gave him 50-50 a wrestling match. Like he gave him so much. And there were two takes on the subject. Like some people would say, "What, you are a superstar? Like you are in the major player. If you are going to give this new guy so much, it will take from your status and from the company itself because you are their major player. On the other hand, there are some other people they would say, and there is the take I don't agree with, like they would say Ric Flair would do the same thing. No, Ric Flair didn't do the same thing. When he was wrestling jobbers, he wouldn't give him so much offense. He was giving like some of the top territories guys that we are not aware about these kind of competitive matches. But I would say it will still do good. Like the overall idea is to have a great match on TV. What is your take on this?
Um, I don't mind if it happens to a heel. I think that's where people are kind of missing the mark with Kenny
Uh,
Omega. If Ric Flair's doing it, right, it's because
right,
he's showing off and he's being a heel and he accidentally lets this guy in because he's not taking him seriously. And if you're a heel and you don't take someone seriously, well, you should get your comeuppance a little bit, right? Like you should still win the match, but like you should be reminded that if you disrespect somebody, it might bite you in the ass, right?
right,
With Kenny Omega doing it is he's a babyface. And if you're like let's just take some examples of squash matches from the 80s. Like Magnum TA as a babyface finished matches in 15 seconds. Okay?
right,
The Road Warriors finished their matches in like 4 seconds. Pick a guy up, put him for
right,
the Doomsday Stone. Ron Garvin as a face would torture guys and twist them into pretzels, right?
right,
And like rarely ever give them offense. Okay. But
right,
I mean, but you'd see guys like Arn Anderson, like the Midnight Express, when they were heels, they would torture guys. Maybe the babyface wouldn't get any offense in, but it would take 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes because they would pull the guy over so Cornette could cut a promo on the guy or poke him in the eye or hit him with the racket or whatever, just torture. And
right.
so they're not the same. But yeah, there's no reason that Omega should have given that guy that much offense. Now, having said that, I don't
Right.
think it's the end of the world because let's be honest,
Yes.
he's not in the world title picture, right?
Right.
He's a tag team champion, but because Paige has disappeared because of the virus, he hasn't really been featured as a champion.
Right.
You know, Kenny Omega is kind of just another guy in AEW right now. I would have
Right.
been more upset if it was Moxley or Cody or or whatever. You know
Right.
what I mean? But for Omega,
Like
it
maybe
didn't bother.
we can say he's not in his A game right now, so that's a story, I guess.
Right? Yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I mean, but like Cody has had like competitive matches with guys like Joey Janela and Sean Spears, and
Right.
like those guys don't have really good win-loss records, right? But at least they've been presented as like credible threats. Whether I think they're
Yes.
credible threats or not is irrelevant. They've been presented that way. And so,
Right.
or like who did Jimmy Havoc have like a long match with the other day?
And it was an AEW Dark, right?
I don't remember, but either way, I mean that's another guy who doesn't win a lot of matches, but he's been presented as a credible threat. Whereas the jobber that Omega had fought had never been on
Right.
TV before. He's never going to win a match in AEW, you know.
Right.
But you know, or if you look at like when a jobber did win, look at when the Mulkeys defeated the Gladiators, right? So
Right.
the Mulkeys defeated another jobber team who weren't known for racking up a lot of wins and had like the generic masks on, you know. So
So
that's my
I want
take on that.
I want to ask you a random question, then I'm going to talk about your favorite territory. For me, my first wrestling crush was Miss Elizabeth. Who was your first wrestling crush?
My what?
Your first wrestling crush, like as a kid. Mine was Miss Elizabeth, then it was Sensational Sherry.
Oh no, Missy Hyatt when she was young, man. Oh, Missy Hyatt all day, every day.
So let us pay a tribute. I know Memphis is your favorite territory, right?
Yeah, American territory, yes.
Tell us about it. Why do you love it so much?
Okay. First of all, they have the best announcer ever in Lance Russell, right? Like best wrestling commentator ever. And him and Dave Brown are like the best duo ever in my view. Because Memphis is kind of a wild territory with a lot of
Right,
bloody brawls, a lot of tearing up of the furniture, a lot of wackiness, right? Everybody knows that. And then you have these two respectable members of the community, Lance Russell, Dave Brown, had been around for decades. Dave Brown was like a respected weatherman. Lance Russell had been around since like the 50s or 40s or something crazy, right?
right,
And you have these two respectable guys kind of bringing some gravity to the situation around all this madness. Then you have Jerry Lawler, who, in my view, just one of the best talkers of all time. You have this little guy from, where's he from? New Zealand or Australia? My man Bill Dundee.
I think he's from New Zealand.
All right, who knows, right? It doesn't matter. I mean,
Right,
but the point is, you have this guy who, by all accounts, you look at him, you're like, well, he should just get squashed like a bug, right?
right,
But yet he carries himself so well, and he was such a great talker and wrestler that he made you believe that he was a credible threat. And then look at all the guys that came through Memphis that became bigger stars elsewhere. Well, they cut their chops in Memphis. Like Rick Rude's first great matches were in Memphis. King Kong
right,
Bundy had great matches in Memphis. Jerry Lawler could wrestle anybody. Like, there
right,
was a joke that all Jerry Lawler does is punch. Well, when you're the greatest puncher in the world, why do you need to do anything else? Right?
right.
And because all he did was punch, he gets a series out of Nick Bockwinkel that is surrounded, that the whole angle is about Jerry Lawler doing nothing but punching. So every
I
time
love
Jerry
it.
Lawler throws a punch, he gets fined, right?
Right,
I mean, like just amazing angles, amazing interviews,
right.
amazing wrestling. It's everything I want out of my classic.
But
Because even
speaking of
even
Lawler,
even
he's a
the
crazy
studio,
bumper as well, right?
what's that?
Like Jerry Lawler, he takes crazy bumps. Like he bumps like crazy.
One of the most insane bumpers of all time.
Right.
What's funny is he's a crazy bumper, and people don't look at that like, oh my God, this guy is rolling down the bleachers of the arena,
Yes.
you know, or you know, it's kind of like somebody pointed out to me that Mark Henry took crazy bumps. And if you watch like a Mark Henry match, like from the early thousands when nobody thought he was any good, he is. He's an amazing bumper. Like, oh wow, I
Right,
never knew that. Or another friend of mine, this girl from Australia, she pointed out that Trish Stratus was an amazing bumper. I was like, what? Like, because everybody just thought Trish Stratus was like eye candy, and then
right.
turns out to be like this really great wrestler who took amazing bumps.
That's true.
And then, but getting back to Lawler, Lawler was taking amazing bumps into his 60s. Like he was doing a
Right.
lot of the same stuff in his 60s that he was doing in his 30s. Just
Yes.
such an amazing wrestler. Um, in some ways, you almost think like, man, the WWF ruined him. Just made him this caricature like they do everybody else. But I'm
Right.
kind of biased, man. I think they ruin everybody. So, because there were so many wrestlers that when they were in their territories, they would have great, amazing matches. But
Right.
because we grew up on them watching WWF, we just thought that they were bad wrestlers. And you're like, oh wow, Jim Duggan had a lot of great matches.
Yes.
Not in
And Mets.
WWF, but yeah, Mid South, absolutely. Jerry
Right.
Lawler had a Hall of Fame career before he ever stepped foot in WWE.
Right.
So many wrestlers. Ted
The sheep
DiBiase,
herders as well, like they were
Sheepherders
great. Yes.
in Portland, yes, in Portland. I guess you could say the UWF. Um, then you watch Ted DiBiase. He was my favorite wrestler as a kid. I couldn't name you one classic match that he had in WWF. A lot of classic angles, memorable
Right.
vignettes, classic feuds, but not matches. Like where you say that's the definitive
Yeah.
WWF Ted DiBiase match. You know, there's a few guys that are so great, like Ricky Steamboat, that they could have great matches there or
Right.
anywhere else that you put them. You know, but look at all the guys that were just kind of floating around, not doing anything. Barry Windham never did anything in WWF, right?
Yes. Right.
Okay, but like such a great wrestler in the 80s. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's one of those things where when I look at great wrestlers, I have to look at them outside of the WWE, WWF universe
Right.
because if you only get that snapshot of who they are, you come away disappointed.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Uh, yes, definitely. I now, like you're saying it, I wonder, like maybe Vince, he wanted to do it on purpose, like hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Yeah, yeah, you are back. I think he was on mute. Maybe for like Vince wanted to do it on purpose. He didn't want to have that great matches that it will maybe change his vision about the cartoonish style at that time. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, let's be fair, man. Some people were having great matches in
Right,
WWE at the time, you know. So I think it's a couple of things, right? I think it's the crazy travel that they were
right.
doing. Like Macho Man was still having great matches, you know.
Yes, no doubt.
I mean, but he's a legend, right? I mean, Steamboat was still
Right.
having great matches. Jake the Snake had great matches there, but he had great matches outside of there, Rick
Yes,
Rude had a lot of good matches before he went to WWF. He had some good ones then and some good ones after. So I mean, it can happen.
right.
I'm not saying they can't have great matches there. I'm just saying it was never a place where, oh, we're going to see your strengths and we're going to capitalize on that.
Right.
Like One Man Gang had some great matches before he ever went there. Then it becomes a heel.
Yes, I love. Yes.
You know, I mean, so I
I
mean,
I want you like I want to touch on two of your favorite wrestlers as well. First of all, let's talk about Dustin Rhodes. Like, why do you like him so much?
well, he's another guy that I kind of discovered after the fact, right? And here's what I mean. When he was in WCW, I wasn't watching any wrestling. Okay,
Okay.
I went through a period like a lot of American wrestling fans, where we watched it in the '80s. We didn't watch it in the early '90s, and we came came back around for the Monday Night Wars. Okay.
Right.
And so then by the time I came back, he was Gold Dust, and I just didn't take him seriously. Right.
Right.
Okay. Are you still there?
Yes, I am with you, my friend.
Okay. 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 And then there just came a point where when I started collecting old footage, you go back and be like, oh, wow, this guy's really good. And then you start watching old Gold Dust matches, and some of them are horrible. But then you start watching some TV matches and saying, oh, wow, he's really good. And then you start watching all of his tag team matches, and it becomes really apparent that this guy is one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time.
Yes,
And
he's a
then when
great
him,
tag wrestler.
oh, one of the best, like top five tag wrestler of all time,
Right.
like just had all these great tag matches. And I think when I kind of noticed that he was really good was when him and Booker T were teaming up, right? I was still watching WWE TV at the time,
Right.
and they were having that series with the Canadian guys like Lance Storm and Chris Jericho, Christian, and those guys. And I just thought, wow, these guys are really freaking good. But
Right.
I was like, wait a minute, Dustin's really good, or Goldust is really good. And then he
Right.
has a tag team with his brother later on. And I saw it with my own eyes. Like I saw them wrestle as a tag team, like live, front row, and thinking, oh my God, he just knows how to control a crowd. He can come out to zero response. And by the end of the match, the crowd is just behind him going nuts because he knows how to tell a story in the ring. He's just one of the best at it.
Right.
Okay.
No, I agree. I agree with
And,
that, definitely.
you know, now, like last year, okay, when Cody fought Dustin, right?
Right.
Great match. That match was so great that there are so many matches that people can argue were the match of the year last year. But we're going
Right.
to forget about those because of Cody and Dustin's storytelling, because of the blood, because of the pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view ever. We're going to remember that match. You and I are going to be talking about that match 5 years from now. Whereas
And
some random New Japan match, we'll be like, oh, which one was that? Was that the fourth or fifth or eighth match that they ever had? I don't remember. And we're going to
how
forget about
often how often do you see grown men crying in the crowd?
it.
People were crying legit in that match.
Yeah, well, they were crying too when Elizabeth came down to save Macho Man, right? And they
Yeah,
were like,
that was a great match as well.
I get it though, man. I mean, hey, whatever. I mean, if
Right.
you're, and here's the thing about any wrestler. If you're invested in that wrestler personally or emotionally, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they're a good wrestler, bad wrestler. If you're
Right.
personally invested in them, then you're going to feel emotion. You know.
Yes, I agree.
So
How about William Regal?
what about him?
I know he's in your top five wrestlers of all time.
One of the best
Like,
wrestlers of all time.
right, and a lot of people like they will not get William Regal. How amazing he is, right?
That's true, but okay. So remember how I told you I hated Dick Murdoch and Buddy Rose when I was a kid, right?
Yes.
And Tully Blanchard. Okay. So in the early 90s when he was in WCW, I might flip the channel and see wrestling, and I'd see this guy on TV, and I thought, man, this guy's so boring. I'll never want to watch him again, right? And then when the Monday Night Wars were happening, I never like got excited like when William Regal was going to wrestle, right? Just kind of flip the channel. But there's just something that happens with age, Hassan,
Right.
where, and I think this is what you were getting at earlier, where you have people that are better at a different stage in your life. So,
Right.
like a William Regal, if you're 12 years old, 15 years old, 22 years old, you're not going to appreciate Lord Steven Regal or William Regal, right? You're just
Right.
not. But when you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, and you see this guy rubbing his forehead against somebody's face
Yeah.
or putting his elbow in somebody's shoulder as he's twisting an arm back and breaking their fingers, you think, oh my God, that is the neatest thing I've ever seen. That is the most painful thing I've ever seen. That is the
Right.
smartest thing I've ever seen the guy do. Like, he just does so many little things in each match where you think everybody else is playing checkers and this guy is playing chess. He's just
Yes.
that good. He really is just that good, right? So
Right.
that's why I love it. Like, he's a guy I could 20 years ago this on if you and I were talking. And we probably wouldn't have never been talking because there wasn't good internet back then and we didn't have all the
Right.
technology. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked.
That's right.
But 20 years ago, neither one of us would have said, "Oh my God, did you see that William Regal match? Did you see
Yes.
that Steven Regal match?" It would have been like, "Hey, dude, Stone Cold, you know,
Right. Right.
hey, hey, WCW sure does suck, doesn't it? Yep, it sure does. Yep, okay, good."
Right.
You know, but
Total.
now, but now, because of the power of footage, being able to revisit all the old matches, seeing just the way this guy dissects people in his matches, you
Right.
just have this new appreciation that you would have never had before.
Which match would you recommend people like to watch that will show all these skills of William Regal? Which match would you recommend of him?
Okay, it's not even a match; it's a series. He
Right.
wrestled, he wrestled Larry Zbyszko in a three-match series. Do you remember
Love.
that?
Yes, love it.
Okay, and all three matches are wrestled differently. You have the scientific match, you have the crazy 10-minute brawl, and then you have like the kind of, I don't want to call it a main event because they would never main event anywhere. But then they had like the big drawn out like angle heavy match. So all three of them are great matches and they all are wrestled differently for what the situation called for at the time.
Right.
And then I would recommend that. I would recommend the Fit Finley matches.
Amazingly, I think Larry was past his prime at that point, right?
Sure, but well, I mean, a little bit, but you know, Zabisco, I mean, had been still a veteran, 20-year veteran at the time, right?
Right.
He knows what he's doing. He was good in the Dangerous Alliance,
Mm.
so yeah, he was, but I mean, still one of my favorite like feuds that I can recall was Zabisco versus Regal. Okay,
Right.
but that's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Still great. Definitely the Fit Finley stuff, right? Because that was amazing stuff.
Right.
Um, Here's the thing, man. Like, I've seen a lot of bad William Regal matches, but not because William Regal or Steven Regal was bad. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
it's like, no, he's still doing amazing shit. It's just not everything's coming together because his opponent isn't as good as him, or just because they're not on the same page or whatever,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
So, I mean, but Regal is just a treasure. He's a guy that I genuinely get excited every time I see a different match because
Right.
they all end up having something I'd either never seen before or something I might have seen before, but he just does it in a different way that makes me appreciate him even more.
Yes. Absolutely. At like our last topic, I want like you obviously have one of the biggest wrestling libraries. Like you you was a source for tapes trading, right? Tell us about your amazing collection.
What about it? What do you want to know?
I want to know how did you get into the tapes trading? I know we are not going to say the names, but even some big wrestler stars were getting stuff from you. You were that
That's true.
you were that famous when it comes to providing footages and materials.
Okay, so here's what happened. I've told this story before too. But remember, you'd have VHS tapes, right? And people would
Yes,
trade VHS tapes. I would buy VHS tapes from people, okay?
right,
And when I was buying VHS tapes, they were expensive. So you could only buy like one or two or three at a time. I was a poor kid going to college, man.
right,
Uh, and so I wasn't like one of these crazy tape traders. fighters who had like hundreds of tapes. I had dozens of tapes, right? And I got a DVD burner and a DVD converter. And
Right.
so I would convert VHS tapes to DVD. So what I did to get my collection is I would talk to people who would have master tapes or tapes, and I would say, send me your VHS tapes. Okay.
Right.
I'll convert them to DVD, and then I'll send you back a DVD copy and your VHS tape. And that's how I accumulated my collection. Then I started making the compilations
Right.
because part of the compilations when I first started was, hey, I really like this guy. I want to see him. Or, hey, everybody else talks about this wrestler and says how great they are. I want to
Right.
make a compilation to see if I agree. And then to keep my wife at the time off my back, it's like, well, I have to make a little bit of money at it. So it was
Right.
basically a way to fund my wrestling um, addiction, right? And then you just
Right.
meet people from all over, wrestlers, other people that I've met along the way, people that are just good people that I still
Right.
talk to, people that have given me a place to stay, when I've traveled around the country. Just, you know, it's given me so much. But more than anything, right, is you meet a lot of nice, good-hearted people, but
Right.
you're doing it while watching something that you enjoy, while doing this hobby,
Right.
right? You and I are having this conversation today because of this hobby, right?
Absolutely.
And then it's like, hey, you're from where? From Bahrain, this little island that nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
Second smallest country in the world. What?
No, and a wrestling fan.
You're a wrestling fan and you've been to Tokyo and you want to
What's
go
the
to
problem?
Mexico City? Who is this guy? You know? But it's all because of wrestling and all because of collecting these DVDs. But so so back to the original question. Eventually, then you start trading DVDs for DVDs. You don't lose any of the generation. Like with VHS, you copy a VHS tape, you start losing generations, right? So really bad tape means that you kept copying it over and over, you know.
Yes.
But on a DVD, it looks exactly the same as the way you converted it, you know.
Right.
So you don't lose any video quality, and you just start meeting people this way. Check this out. Okay, one of my favorite things. I saw this on Instagram. One of my old customers lived in Amsterdam, right?
Right.
And at the time, Amsterdam was one of the only legal places that had legal marijuana, right?
Yes.
Now, Hassan, you know me. Because of my jobs, I have to do drug testing. I don't smoke. I don't
Right.
engage in that, whatever. But I thought, oh my God, this place has bars or restaurants or whatever you want to call it. They're called actually in Amsterdam. My friend said that they're called coffee shops. I said,
Right.
dude, I just want a menu from one of these places. Like, I want to see this stuff on a menu. And so
Right.
I sent this guy some DVDs for a coffee shop menu that has like different types of marijuana on it,
Right.
And it's like who else is going to get something like that? It's just something I
Right.
wanted, not because not because of my love for like illegal drugs, but just because I thought, oh my God, this stuff is being sold like
Right.
like you would get a steak off the menu. I
Right.
want to see one of these menus, and so he
Right.
did. He sent me a menu. I still have it to this day. You know. I mean, one of my favorite wrestling experiences ever, Hassan, was I made a compilation for Elio Del Santo, right?
Right.
Because he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, right?
Yes.
And he's wrestling in this old abandoned uh, Mexican rodeo about 45 minutes south of San Antonio. Okay? It was the
Right.
absolute worst ring I'd ever seen in my life. It was outdoors. The mosquitoes are biting us. Like it's dirty,
That's
it's
great.
dusty. Between every match, all of these little dirty kids are just like jumping around in the ring, and you hear the announcer, "Niños, niños." Ninos, right? Because he's trying to tell the kids like, "Hey, get out of the ring!" Right, the next match is about to start, and
Right.
and the son of the biggest Mexican legend, and a legend in his own right, Elio Del Santo, is there, and so I actually gave him like my compilation of all of his career, right?
Seriously, you didn't tell me about this story.
Yes, and then he said, I think I've shown you the mask though, right? Like I bought a mask and he signed it.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so like it's one of my favorite memories, where like man, I was like a little kid. Like hey, you remember how I was in Arena, Mexico? Like just like a
Right.
little kid having fun. That's how I felt meeting El Santo, and like I'm like I don't know, half a foot taller than this guy, but he's a legend. But here he is in a little dirty old abandoned rodeo, taking
Right.
pictures with this gringo from Texas. It's just one of my favorite things ever. You know.
I think what made you stood out, like there were a lot of tapes traders, like, but as you said, you were making these complications or sets, like you would choose the best of New Japan or the best of Lucha, so you would have the absolute elite of all of these promotions. So like for people, for me, if I don't have that much idea about Mid South, I would come to you. I'll get the best of Mid South DVD sets, and it will sit me like for the whole history of the promotions.
Okay, so how did those come apart? How did those come together? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I was saying this is what stood out about you, and it's not easy. Like you would have to watch all the matches to like have the best of
Right.
communication or stuff.
Oh, okay. Let me explain the process. So this was back. First of all, you have to have people you trust, right?
Right.
Okay. I didn't do this on my own. I didn't watch all those matches myself and pick them.
Right.
So what I would do is I would assemble what I call teams. All right. My dear friends, Phil Schneider, Chris Elner, who has his own podcast, Between
Right.
the Sheets, so many other people. Phil Schneider's the one, it was his idea, his vision to do this project, this DVD VR project. And
Right.
the first step was get as much footage as possible from every territory, right?
Right.
So with Mid South, that means get every TV show, every house, all the house show footage we can get, which we actually bought directly from Bill Watts' ex-wife because
Crazy.
she was selling VHS tapes at the time. Okay, every house show, every TV, any compilations that were out there that might have footage that we didn't see on these TV shows and house show footage.
Right.
But the greatest footage we got from that set, just for example, was there was a guy in Houston, this guy Brandon, and he had taped uh, Mid South UWF footage from Houston, and so they would have matches that were only shown in Houston from Mid
Wow.
South.
Right.
Yeah, it was like 40 or 45 discs worth of stuff. And this guy sent us the footage, and we were able to watch all of that too and get matches from
Right.
Houston that nobody would have ever seen otherwise. And that
Right.
was the first step for all of these sets that we did for like over a 10-year period. It was get as much footage as possible. Is there anything that's out there that we don't have? If we don't have it, let's get it. And we would. And
Right.
then I would send like a third of the discs to somebody, a third of the discs to somebody else. Like we'd usually have like three-man teams. And somebody would watch like maybe I'd send all the TV to one guy. And he'd watch
Right.
all the TV shows. And if he'd nominate a match, or he'd say, "Hey, check this match out, see what you think," or he'd say, "This match sucks." And generally, because we trust each other's opinions, we'd
Yeah,
say,
I was going to say that. You would need like people you would trust with their taste in wrestling.
"Yes," and that's exactly. So if someone nominated something, then they would send it to the next guy, And typically that guy would just watch the stuff that was nominated, right? To give a
Right.
thumbs up or a thumbs down or whatever. Because this was before YouTube. This was before it was super easy to share files or whatever, you know. So you'd have to actually mail this stuff to people. And then we'd
Right.
watch it. And then after that, we'd kind of list our own favorite matches. And at the very end of the project, after watching everything that's possible, we'd discuss it. We'd call each other up on the phone and, you know, iron out a list, you know,
Right.
and that's what we did. And sometimes, you know, there were matches that we'd rewatch and be like, man, what were we thinking? That was horrible. Or someone would say, hey, why did you put this match on? And we just overlooked it, or you know,
Yeah.
somebody was, or we just didn't appreciate it at the time, and it's like, oh man, I can't believe
Right.
we left that off. I mean, mistakes happen, life happens, you know, not a big deal. So every set I've ever made, there's a mistake, you know. So, but whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that this was a very long, detailed, involved process with
Right.
dedicated wrestling fans, you know. And then we moved on, and I did stuff with a very close friend of mine, my friend Charles, and we did these 1990s yearbooks where
They were
we took
popular, right?
oh yeah, hugely popular, where we would take a year from the 90s and we would collect footage from every single territory that we could find, decide
Yes.
what was important enough, if a match was good enough or important enough to go on there, or an angle or an interview or whatever. Sometimes they were personal picks, sometimes they were based on, you know, popularity or
Right.
notoriety, you know. And then we made these yearbooks that, you know, basically you have the history of wrestling for an entire decade,
Right.
you know. And those were fun to put together too. So, you know,
And closing, like as you were making the years book, what would you say the best year of wrestling in the 90s?
oh, I don't know, man. It's 92, right?
Right.
I mean, 1992 is pretty amazing, you
Wow.
know. But every year had like great stuff. 1994 had great stuff. Like, it was kind of like weird because 1993, 94, like wrestling was falling apart in America, right?
Right.
1995. But it was great all over the world, everywhere
Yes.
else. Mexico was great, you know. Japan was,
Japan.
but then
Right.
like America, it'd be like, you know, it didn't matter, you know. But 1995, then ECW comes along, so you have this
Right.
whole new promotion that you're putting stuff on disc for, you know. I mean, there's always something different about every, and
Right.
that's the good thing about the set is you kind of see companies fall off, and then you see new companies form, and then you see
Right.
styles change and new stars, and you know, like we'd always try and include like stuff on the earlier years of like your Stone Colds or The Rock in Memphis or something. Just say, hey, this is where these guys came from, you know,
Right.
that would become huge stars later on, you know, where you'd have guys like Hogan who were present throughout the entire decade because they're Hulk
Right.
Hogan or Ric Flair or whoever. You know, it's too important not to include. So it was, but no, I still get people asking for yearbooks. Like, hey, I think I'm gonna buy 1994. Okay, cool. You know,
Right.
so you know, I mean, no, man, it's. But now, you know, like I said, like, but those days are over. DVDs, um, uh, digital, like everything right now is online in the
Yes.
cloud.
Phasing out. Yeah.
You know, there's no physical media anymore, and that's okay,
Right.
right? It had its day. There were positives to it, and there were
Right.
negatives. Because, like, do you remember when the NWA channel existed that had all that footage from Houston?
Right.
Well, now that channel's gone.
Yeah. So
So
for,
what's that?
so can you imagine if like maybe someone would buy the WWE, they will put the WWE network on on the shelf, then your business will come back. Hello? Hello?
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
had you on mute, man. I didn't want to breathe heavy while you were
Oh,
talking. And then okay,
sorry.
repeat what you said.
I mean, if you can imagine, like you were saying, like if WWE is sold and they will have to put the network in hiatus, so then maybe everybody is going to call you up for tapes.
I don't have them anymore, man. I mean, I did. I still have like my compilations, but like my
Right.
actual footage, like the thousands and thousands of DVDs,
Right.
like I, those are kind of spread out all over the country, man. I moved so much after my divorce that I,
Right.
I would like leave stuff in Memphis, leave stuff in Austin, leave stuff in Wisconsin. It's just kind of like the whole collection's like just spread out all over the place. So,
Hey
but
man, it's
yeah,
been a great like always talking to you. Like we talk a lot, like not necessarily about wrestling, but this is our kind of first podcast or Skype interview. It's been always a
sure.
great talking to my friend.
My friend, you're one of my favorite people in the whole world. Like literally
Thank
the whole world. You know what I mean?
Wow, thank you. That's a great privilege to hear from you, my friend.
Hey, but you know what's even better?
Right.
Seeing Marty Jones call you out on your Facebook page. That was the best thing ever, man.
For yeah, I had like this. What's funny, I was recommending like, hey, well, do you want to watch some current AAA? And said, no, man, I don't want to watch it. So I was watching it, and there was some kind of two women wrestling really bad, and Marty Jones was saying, "Hey man, what are you watching this?" And he was cursing me out.
Yeah, but I think he was doing it in good fun because I think when you interviewed him, he really liked you, and
Yes,
you're really knowledgeable and could tell you're a sincere fan. And then, in his mind, he's like, "Oh, this is garbage." And he's like, "Why is this guy who's such an intelligent wrestling fan watching this garbage?"
this guy absolutely. Thank you, man. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Oh man, Hassan, my brother from another mother, we will definitely talk soon.
All right, thank you. Take care,
All
my
right.
friend. Bye. Bye.